I'm joined by Resha Patel, registered consultant dietitian and personal performance coach, founder of the Dietician in Harrods, and host of the Dietician Bites Podcast. During the episode, Reshma provides advice on how to become a successful dietitian and develop and maintain a thriving dietetic practice, and explains how entrepreneurs from every industry should live their lives to achieve the best version of themselves and businesses. Throughout the episode, Reshma explains the considerable differences between a medically trained consultant dietitian and nutritionist, why it is so important to have the correct qualifications before advising people on a weight loss journey, and how to gain the required qualifications to become a consultant dietitian. We also discuss how to launch a dietetic practice once qualified, and Reshma provides her very interesting insight into whether a traditional business plan and strategy is required before going self-employed. Reshma also reveals how to gain recognition as an industry expert and the most effective and ethical methods of winning and retaining clients. Importantly, Reshma explains the significance of exercise and adequate sleep, and talks about the various diets and foods which can contribute to increased energy levels and cognitive ability, which are all crucial to the successful performance of entrepreneurs. I am so excited to have you here with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So who are you and what is your mission?
Who am I? Oh, I guess I am a registered dietitian. So I'll start with that one because that's what I do day in, day out, and that's my everyday. So I'm a registered dietitian. I'm also a personal performance coach, and I marry the two together when I'm working. But aside from more of the professional things, I am a mother of 2 kids. So I have 2 wonderful children, and when I'm not working, I feel like my only other role is being a mum. So I'm split between the 2 roles. As for mission, I guess from a work perspective, it's really adding value to everyone's day, helping them to make better choices when it comes to weight management and lifestyle, and navigating that really confusing world for them on a day-to-day basis of what to eat, how to eat, where to exercise, are we doing intermittent fasting, are we not? So my mission is to almost, remove all that noise for a person and teach them what works best, ideally for them, and enabling them to rediscover the best version of themselves so they can actually reach the heights that they want to.
I think that's really interesting. First of all, your point about, being a mother as well as a dietitian, because I think I'm going to come back onto this later, talking about people at the moment talking about balancing work-life balance, coming out of the COVID lockdown a couple of years ago, and people wanting to look after their well-being a little bit more. I think there is talk about people integrating their work and their home life so they can kind of like have more flexibility. So yeah, I think that's interesting that you kind of like say that you're both, because I think it's difficult to swap your hats, isn't it? Especially if you're a business owner.
It is, because I feel like you're constantly on, and when you're maybe working for someone else and you're doing a 9 to 5, well, after you're 5 you get to switch off, whereas I feel like I left my 9 to 5 job to work 24/7, which is exactly what I end up doing. So it is a little bit harder, but on the other side, working for myself means I get to juggle that time, and I can then just say, okay, from 4 to 8 o'clock in the evening, I'm not working because the kids are home and it's just impossible to do the 2. But then from 8 to maybe midnight, I am working and catching up, and that's okay as well. So I do feel like there is a balance that you can strike, but that balance did come for me post-COVID.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what is the reason that you decided to become a dietitian?
I guess the number one reason was I wasn't clever enough to be a doctor. And my parents just assumed that, it would be doctors, lawyers, barristers, one of those titles. And medicine wasn't for me. So I thought, okay, I really love science. I want to make a difference to people's lives. So with those 2 things, what can I do? And I looked at all the other allied health professionals, so speech and language, physiotherapy, and nutrition. And actually, nutrition stood out for me. I didn't want a hands-on job where I was actually touching anyone. So I thought, yeah, nutrition's great. I can tell people how to eat and I can change their lives. So I did my first degree in nutrition and food science because I wasn't sure if I really wanted to also just work with people. I think you can change lives on an industry level. So I thought, let me do nutrition and food science, pick which one I really enjoy, and then maybe do a master's to continue. So I ended up enjoying nutrition. I went on then to do my master's in nutrition and dietetics and went on to become a dietitian.
Interesting. I love that that path that you have created for yourself. I mean, first of all, to hit on your point about not being intelligent enough to become a doctor, I am pretty sure that you could have been. But it's finding what you actually want to do, because when you want to do it, it does become easier. I mean, I've done things in the past where I'm sure that I could do it if I really put my mind to it, but nah, I don't really want to do that. So I'm gonna venture off and do something else. But yeah, I like that you dipped your toe in different kind of waters to see what interested you. I mean, again, I can relate to you wanting to work with people, testing some things out, and then venturing off into something else. I think it's so important to do that, to get some kind of work experience, to see if it's the profession, if it's the career or the industry that you want to work in, or if it's just the kind of people that you want to work it with. Sorry. So yeah, it's difficult, I think, when 16, 17-year-olds are at school and they're kind of at the point in their life where they're making these life decisions. And yeah, although they're not kids, it's still a big decision to make when you're that young.
Yeah, it really is. And in sciences in particular, you don't really know the scope of what you can do as a dietitian. So I had no idea. I just assumed once I qualify, I'll work in a hospital. But dietitians work absolutely anywhere. They work in advertising, in media, in hospitals, private practice. Even brands like Coca-Cola have a dietitian working for them, and Nestle, and you can do product development. There's so much you can do, but you don't really know about that when you're going into uni. You're like, oh, I don't have a clue. And also a lot of this isn't taught on the course. You learn core dietetics, like you actually learn how to treat sick people in your 4 or 5 years of studying. It's only when you come out with the title that you're like, oh, there's so much you can do with this degree. You don't actually have to end up in a hospital and work with sick patients if you don't want to. There's so much more to it. But yeah, I was glad I did the nutrition and food science part of it, and then went on to do dietetics later, because at this point in my life, at 15 years later, I'm finally using the food science degree that I left behind thinking I'm never going to touch it. It's now coming back and I'm using it at my work.
Again, I'm going to use myself as an example. I've done stuff in the past when I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to use this ever again. And I have needed it in the end. And I think that just goes to show, no matter what you're doing, if you're going to do something, always put 110% into it, because first of all, you don't know if you're going to need it again, and you don't know who's watching and who's working with you, because just because you might not be interested in something doesn't mean somebody else may be looking at you and thinking that person would be really good for something else, but not producing a decent piece of work or quality. So yeah, I think always giving 100% and hoping these things come back like a boomerang, or good karma, I suppose.
For sure, yes.
Yeah. So I read recently that 25.9% of adults in England are obese and a further 37.9% are overweight. So, first of all, are my research skills any good? Is this statistic true? And if it is, why do you think it is this quite large number, I think?
Okay, I don't know if this stat in particular is true with its numbers, but what is true about it is the numbers are high and they are increasing. So for me, it doesn't matter what the numbers are. All you know is there is a number involved and it's a high number. And as time goes on, these numbers just keep going up. And there are loads of things that we're trying to do to maybe balance this or reduce this. The other thing is the word obese and overweight. So I think it's easy to put a number and that word together. These words were technically derived for science professionals that are trying to do studies and need these words to actually bring context into a study. I don't think they're words that we necessarily should be using in general conversation and in the public, because they come with so much stigma and shame attached to them. And even as a professional that works in weight management, I find it really hard to talk about it as, saying, oh, obesity and overweight. And also, for guidelines, it's different for every culture nearly. The ethnic minorities have different cutoffs that put them in this range compared to the Caucasian population. So there's a lot to be said about the numbers and the names. But regardless of that, there is a reason why these numbers are going up. And, it's obesity in general is such a difficult topic to talk about. It's so hard because it's multi-component. And I remember going all the way back to when I was at university, and they said, oh, here are the reasons we have obesity. And this crazy diagram turned up on the screen. And I'll tell you what this diagram looks like. It looks like the world map. And we have those dotted lines with all the airplanes flying in different directions. It actually looks like that. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really complex to what's going on. So I would say, if I was to name some of the things that are causing this, genetics is a big factor that you can't actually change. Okay, so it's a non-modifiable factor. So our genes play a massive role, whether you have the obesity gene or not, and then the environment that you're putting. Socioeconomic status, we know, is another thing where pockets of deprivation, we find more people that are overweight or obese, and that's because of, their general lifestyle and everything else around them. But really obvious things that I think, we don't really think about every day is things like, confusing food labels. Although we've tried to make it really simple, it's still very confusing to someone that hasn't done nutrition and doesn't actually know what fat is and what carbohydrates are and what protein is. And I would say that's vast majority of our population that wouldn't know what they're looking at when they read a food label. Advertising, although we have legislation around this, there is still advertising out there which is unhealthy, and the more people see it, the more they're buying into it and wanting to try the product out. Deals, we're notorious for 2-for-1s on all these things and special offers. At this moment in time, with the cost of living and the hike and everything, a deal always sounds good. And usually you don't see these deals on maybe fruit and veg. It is predominantly on products that are high in fat, high in sugar. Portion sizes over the years have increased. I'd say the UK is pretty good compared to other countries when it comes to portion sizing, but it's still there. There's things in the checkout. As soon as I walk, and I only know this because of children, but I was standing at the checkout and they're like, oh, can we get this? And can we get that? And I'm like, oh, I wish it wasn't there so you can't see it and we don't have to have this argument every time we go to the checkout. So there's so much going on around us, but also the healthier foods, where people are now overindulging in the too good, can become bad for us. So I would say there's so many reasons. I can't even name the top one anymore, but it's just multi-component, multifactorial, and there's so much going on that's causing the numbers to go up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a minefield. I suppose it as you said, it's different for everybody depending on their lifestyle. And not only is it just one thing that you've listed for these people, but it could be all of them. They could all have a crossover. So it sounds really tough. It was interesting, the point that you made about food labeling. So I've always been, as I said at the start of the show, into health and nutrition. And I've tried to eat really clean, checking the back of the packets to see if they were all whole foods and stuff like that, not eating too many E numbers. I've also just come out of doing a very intense degree where I was working full time as well. And efficiency has always been like a number one thing for me. I'm not a good cook either. Well, I don't divert a lot of time to the kitchen.
I'm not a good cook either, and I don't spend a lot of time in my kitchen. I remember someone once said to me, I only have a kitchen because it came with the house. And I started laughing. I was like, you're right. Actually, I don't mind being in there.
One day I'll be able to eat out at restaurants for the lunch and dinner. Like apparently they do that in New York as well, which I really envy them for that. Um, but yeah, so when I was doing this degree and working, I just thought I don't have time to stand in the kitchen for 20, 30 minutes preparing this meal and then eating another 30 minutes. I was like really saving all the time that I could. So in a health food store, I saw this. What were they describing it as? I think it was actually described as a weight loss shake. I mean, I wasn't having it for that. I was having it as a meal replacement. And um, like, don't get me wrong, the back of the packet, I didn't really understand what was going on in there. All I knew it was that it fit into my daily allowance of calories, and it was going to save me 45 minutes. 45 minutes I could spend, going for a walk to get some fresh air or something like that when I was studying and working. So after having these shakes for mostly lunch, but sometimes dinner as well, if I had university in the evening, um, after a few months, I noticed that I was putting on a lot of weight, and I couldn't understand what it was because these shakes were advertised as weight loss shakes. So I carried on having them, and I just thought after a couple of weeks, it must be this. It must be. So I started Googling every single ingredient in this shake. And the second ingredient was a carbohydrate sugar that I learned was just like this crazy kind of carb sugar that was really, really difficult to get out of your system once it had gone into it. No, sorry, it was a carbohydrate, and once it got into your body, it went to like this dirtiest kind of sugar. And I just thought this is mad because it's being advertised as a weight loss drink and it's actually making me put on weight. So yeah, the food labeling I think is crazy.
It is really difficult to navigate food labels. So something like weight loss shakes and things like that, I'm always intrigued. Like a good product would have excellent labeling in my eyes. So, there are many products out there that tell you everything that's actually in there, and they're proud to tell you what's in there. So for me, when I pick up a label, if it's telling me what's in it, I'm more likely to be turning it around and seeing, okay, what is in the ingredients list? So ingredients lists always start with what's in it predominantly. So, it's in the right order. So if carbohydrate was the second thing, that's predominantly a carbohydrate based drink. It's things like, when you pick up, I don't know, a jar of honey, for example, and the honey is only like 70%, you need to figure out what the other 30% is. It could be all sorts of ingredients that have gone in there. Nut butters are another good example. So nut butter, essentially, if you're using a pure nut butter, it should be like 99% nuts. And then you've got a percent of, a bit of salt or something else in it, which is fine. But when the ingredients labels start getting really long, I mean, that's like a chemically produced product put together. So you don't want anything with really long ingredients lists. And even things like, individually wrapped croissants. I looked at the shelf life of those ones and I was like, how is this thing sustaining itself for over a month? I'm like, how is it not disintegrating? It's bread. And things like that always, they really shock me. And I'm like, how are these products actually produced? And people think it's absolutely fine to eat because they have a really long shelf life. And, things like tinned food has a really long shelf life, but it's completely different because, some of the nutrients are lost. However, they still function really well as part of a healthy, balanced diet. But I would say something that's individually wrapped and that has a shelf life for over a month, that's bread, may not be the same as, the great tinned food that we have. But yeah, labels are very, very confusing, and they're getting even more confusing now with so many health products coming out there, people using claims all over the place, like gluten-free. And I'm like, okay, but this product never had gluten in it to start with. Like, it wouldn't even have a trace of gluten in it. So why would you put a label of gluten-free on it? Again, it might be to sell the product because people deem gluten-free or vegan products as healthier products, and that may not necessarily be the case.
That's really interesting. I saw your I think it was a TED talk that you did that you mentioned about the rice being advertised as gluten free, and I just thought, I mean, I didn't know that, and I'm like this self-confessed person that says I'm into health and nutrition and stuff like that. And yeah, I think that kind of stuff is clever marketing, trying to entice people into buy it, but I suppose it is potentially out there to help people or educate people into, suggesting that these things aren't gluten free, but to me it comes across as being a little bit misleading.
Yeah, and it is. And I think that's the problem with advertising. It's when it's misleading. And when you think you're having something that's really good, and all of a sudden you realize it's not great and it's not actually helping you, but you're spending so much money on it. And it's usually led by influencers where, someone's having it and everyone jumps on board, and it's actually dangerous.
Yeah, this is probably a nice segue into my next question, actually. What is the biggest cause of concern in the weight loss management and health and fitness scene?
So for me, the biggest cause of concern is the fact that so many people pose as experts and very few of them are, especially when it comes to nutrition. So for me, if you were someone that was overweight and lost weight, that does not make you an expert in nutrition. And that doesn't mean you can sit there and coach people. If I was to transfer this skill to or this mentality to, I don't know, if you were diagnosed with cancer, would you really go to a breast cancer survivor, for example, and say, oh, do you mind sorting me out and operating on me? I mean, you wouldn't. You would go to the top surgeon that you think can help you, and, you want to survive this. And for me, it's really important to go to a registered professional for advice and for help. I wouldn't go to anyone that was not regulated or registered for any aspect of my life. So for me, that's the biggest cause of concern. There's so many people out there doing it. Frankly, majority of them are doing it wrong. And then they end up with like a registered dietitian years and years later, and they tell you everything that they've done. And to that point, they're almost in a metabolic mess, and you've got to get them out of it. And it's really difficult once they've worked with so many different people, been on so many different diets. So for me, that's the biggest cause for concern.
That's really interesting that you say that. I mean, I know somebody who has lost a lot of weight and looks much healthier now. And he's actually doing kind of like online consultations for people also wanting to lose weight. And I just think that speaking to people who have gone through the same kind of thing is great in a support group, I suppose, because you can speak to other people who have gone through it. But to offer your services, and it's a kind of like, this is what I've done and this is what worked for me. Yeah, I agree with you. It's not right, because, what works for one person doesn't work for another. But on top of that, what they are doing is potentially very, very unhealthy and could cause you harm at the end of the day.
Yeah. I guess for dietitians in particular, they're registered professionals. So it's a bit like a doctor. You couldn't call yourself a doctor unless you were an actual doctor. With dietitian, you cannot call yourself a dietitian. But if you're a nutritionist, anyone could call themselves a nutritionist. You can do a 3-day course and become a nutritionist. You can actually do a 3-year degree and become a nutritionist. So that label is not protected. And a lot of people say, oh, but I'm a certified nutritionist. And for me, it's like, so where did the certificate come from? How many years of training did you have? If you did an online course, then in that case, I mean, I do an online course every other week nearly. I could be all sorts of things. So it's just so important. That messaging is so important of, where did you get your qualification, or what qualification is this? And are you qualified enough to take me on this journey? It's a different blueprint for every single person that you see. It's not one size fits all. And what I think is, when you're not registered, when you're not a professional in the industry, you're working with one size fits all, and you're forcing the person to mold into that size rather than molding the program into them, because you only know one way of doing it.
It's scary, isn't it? It makes me not want to do things sometimes. Like, for example, I am very much into yoga and Pilates, but I know that, God, it's probably easier to say who hasn't done a yoga teacher training course now, because so many people are doing it. It's so easy to do. And I've got to different kind of studios, and some teachers I've had are amazing, like really good. They really know their stuff. Um, and from going to their classes, I know the correct-ish way of how to do things. And I see the difference with some other people, and I just think I can't believe that they're allowed to teach, because the instructions that they're not giving will can really put people at harm. Really put people at harm. So yeah, sometimes it is that I feel a little bit scared and apprehensive about doing stuff sometimes, because yeah, I'm just paranoid that people are not to the standard that they should be. But it's good to know that there are people like yourself out there in the world that can offer people real solid sound advice. So what is your favorite scientifically backed diet, if there is such a thing?
Is there such a thing? So for me, I guess just recently in my podcast, my first and second podcast episode, I actually spoke about a diet where we use soup and shakes. And this was to help people that have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, or those who are pre-diabetic, so just before their diagnosis, to come into remission. Now, diabetes is a huge, huge passion of mine. I've worked in diabetes for many years and also been South Asian. My community, it's one of the number one things I end up getting. So I like this diet because it has a massive positive impact on quality of life, on weight, on the fact that someone will go away from diabetes, not be on medication lifelong, not suffer the consequences of diabetes. It's a massive thing and it works. So we've done huge trials and we know that we can successfully take clients into remission. Now, I guess this isn't the answer that anyone was looking for, because they're like, no, we just want to lose weight. We want to know what diet helps us to lose weight. There isn't one. So I can't give you the name of a diet that successfully helps people lose weight. Keto diet was another very popular one. Again, my episode with ChatGPT, even AI is like, no, keto is very popular. However, this diet was never made for weight loss. It was made for epilepsy in children. So if you ask a dietitian, she'll be like, what are people doing with keto diets? Why are they even on them? There's lots of cons to the diet and they outweigh the pros for me. So I would never recommend that. The diet that works the best is the one that people individualize for themselves. It's what works for you. Like you said, you were trying to take some shakes to, help you with time management and to get everything in nutritionally. That would work for you. It may not work for the other person because liquids don't give them satiety. So although they're having a fully nourishing meal out of a soup or a shake, it doesn't work for that person. So that diet is not the right one for them. So I find it really difficult to even name a diet because I don't think there actually is one that works for the general population in, for example, weight management.
Very, very good to know. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I haven't done a lot of diets, but I have done, I have like lived my lifestyle in different ways, I suppose, if you want to put it like that. So I've done the intermittent fasting diet. Why did I do that? I think I watched that program with what's his name? Can't remember. Begins with N. About the 5-2. And at this point, I did it actually thinking about it. I had PCOS, and I understood that by going through these fasted periods, I could bring my insulin down and help reduce some of the symptoms I had. And some of the symptoms have gone. Whether or not it was the intermittent fasting, I don't know. But it was around that kind of time. So, I mean, I'm really grateful if it was that. I stopped doing it actually after a couple of months, the 5-2 anyway, which for anybody who doesn't know what 5-2 is the diet where you eat essentially whatever you want, as long as, it's not crazy of not eating a cake every day. And the 2 remaining days, you only have 500 calories a day. Now, I've also heard that this 500 calorie number was kind of like picked out of thin air. but yeah, a little while later, I did the 16. Oh no, what did I do? It was the OMAD diet, which is intermittent fasting, but you just have 1 meal a day. And I think that I put on weight whilst I was doing that because I was eating a lot of nuts and I was just like throwing nuts, like handfuls of nuts on my salad in the evening. Yeah, and I mean, I definitely didn't lose any weight, but yeah, it's just interesting that some of these things are labeled as weight loss when in fact they're not at all.
Yeah, so it really depends how you do it. So 5-2 has a lot of science behind it. So the five, it's essentially you're reducing your calories by about 3,500 a week by doing the deficit, and a pound of fat is about 3,500 calories. So you can see that if you just use the science of that, you would start losing weight. However, I think where people struggle with restriction, if you struggle with restriction, then you're going to almost eat a little bit more or possibly binge eat on the days that you are allowed to eat. So it balances it all out. I think you still have to be really mindful on the days that you are eating the normal diet or a balanced diet. However, there's huge amount of evidence with intermittent fasting, all very positive. But for me, even with the evidence, it's just outweighed by the fact that I want to eat 3 meals in the day and I want to eat regularly and I don't want my energy levels to dip. And also when I don't eat food, I'm not the best possible version of myself. So I don't want that to be presented to my children or to my work. So it doesn't work for me, despite all the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to ask you a little bit more about PCOS because it's something that interested me. I did a lot of research about how to cure these symptoms that I had for so many years before finding something that may or may not have worked. And I know that a lot of other people will suffer from it as well. So, is there any specific diet or any lifestyle people can lead in order to help reduce these symptoms or other medical issues that are similar?
So with PCOS, I think it's really difficult because everyone presents slightly differently with their symptoms. So the way we would navigate diet and PCOS is based on what kind of symptoms you have and what are we trying to manage? Like, is it pain? Are we trying to get regular periods? Are we looking at fertility? Is it the weight gain? What are your top concerns with the PCOS? And then we think about how diet and lifestyle can help with the symptom management of it. So there isn't a particular diet, but there are obvious things that we really find with our PCOS clients. So there are huge body image concerns that we work with. So that's a real emotional kind of coaching that goes on when it comes to body image. There are food cravings, particularly with carbohydrates and sugary foods, and this is because of a hormone imbalance. So we're trying to teach our clients how can we manage our sugar levels better and what kind of carbohydrates can we have to also manage these sugar levels. Whether you have PCOS or you don't have PCOS, at the time of your cycle, there will be a change in hormones, which will give you that surge and want you to eat a lot more. So how do we manage all of that? Some clients really struggle with losing weight or even gaining weight for that matter. So your food plans will reflect whether you need to have increased calories or whether we're trying to put you into a calorie deficit. So for fertility, we do a lot of PCOS and fertility nutrition. So what's going to help food-wise to make you fertile or have a good, healthy, sustained pregnancy? So I think there's a lot to consider when it comes to PCOS, and there isn't a one thing fits all. I think if I was to give you blanket advice, it would be manage the carb content. That would be my blanket advice of everyone that has PCOS. But I think that's no different to anyone. Like, you want to manage the type and the frequency of carbohydrates.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so interesting that food can help cure just so many different health concerns. I mean,
it's mind-blowing. Like, literally every organ is managed to some aspect with food. Brain, liver, kidneys, heart, everything. Like, nutrition impacts every single organ we have. So I think it's crazy whenever people are like, what do dietitians do? I'm like, well, it depends what field you're looking at, but we have specialist dietitians in every single area, and one dietitian does not know it all.
So
she just can't.
So interesting. In my next life, I'd like to be a dietitian. This is
You can do it in this life, Stephanie. You can do it in this one.
that's going to take a lot of meal replacement shakes, I think, to fit it on top of the stuff that I'm, doing now. But yeah, this again leads into my next question quite well. So I've been studying to become a lawyer, and I'm going to start at this law firm in a couple of years' time. It's funny me saying that. It's just I have some more education to go through, and I mean, I suppose a lot of people struggle getting adequate sleep, in the best of time. But yeah, so the career that I'm going into, it's kind of it's well known for working well into the early hours of the morning. So. Can a nutritious diet and consistent exercise counteract inadequate sleep?
Definitely not. I mean, you know what? They're almost standalone and they impact each other. So when you have poor sleep, it directly impacts your food choices. People tend to eat more because of the hormones that are secreted. So this isn't just, oh, it's in my mind, or, I need more energy. Your body will secrete the right hormones to send the right signals to force you to eat more. So we do find that people that have poor sleep and that are not sleeping well or sleeping very short hours and not good quality are at risk of gaining weight, more so than the person that is sleeping well. So no, there's no way of counteracting the fact that you've had lack of sleep. It has to be good sleep.
Okay, as I said, not the answer I was looking for, but thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So as people get older, I've heard them say, or I've heard people say that as people get older, you don't need as much sleep. Do you think that that's true?
When we get older, we're probably not as active as we were when we were younger and working our full-time jobs or having the responsibility of dropping kids and all of that. So energy expenditure changes as we get older, body composition changes as we get older. It doesn't mean that you necessarily need less sleep. It's just that you're less active and you may not be sleeping as much. I don't know the true science behind this, so I'm not 100% sure, but I do know generally, people sleep differently at different stages in their lives, depending on, how much time they spend outdoors and how much natural sunlight they're in, or natural light at least. All these things will impact sleep. And I guess people, when they're getting older, and especially the older adults that we look at, they're not leaving the house, they're not really moving, they're not stimulated as much, so they don't actually get very good sleep, because sleep has numerous factors that help us, like with the melatonin production and the way we use our energy. Physical activity helps with sleep, getting outdoors helps. These things don't happen in some older adults, so their sleep is disturbed.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So what do you think is the best way to get out of, or to get rid of bad habits if people have got them? How do you enforce good ones?
So firstly, I talk about the bad habit, because the reason people have habits is usually because it serves them in some way. So how is that habit actually serving you? What is it bringing to your life? Even if it's a very temporary kind of short-term pleasure, that pleasure is really important, and that's why we do it. So figuring out what it's bringing, and then what other activity or what else could you do to bring similar joy or excitement into your life? So can it be replaced? And really working about how bad is this actual habit and how can we navigate it? So it's almost working with a client to say, it's not all or nothing. And that's what a lot of people do. It's this or that, or I'm fully in it or I'm fully off. It's finding that in between for them. And when people come to me, habit change and behavior change is a massive component to my programs. If my client is someone that loves reading, I send them straight to Atomic Habits. James Clear's Atomic Habits is fabulous, because it gives you real practical things on how you can do to change the habit, how you can break things down when you want to introduce new habits. So it's really a step-by-step approach, rather than, okay, I just want to quit smoking, or I'm just going to stop drinking because I really want to lose weight. These things are real absolutes, and we need to think about, okay, what will happen when you start again? What do you think will happen to your weight? So it's a big conversation to have when it comes to habits. And again, it's another thing that it really depends on that person, how long they've been doing it, why they are doing it. And some habits do become people's survival techniques. So that's the only thing they know. They haven't thought about anything else. And it's really scary to do something different, especially when that one thing that you're doing has served you. Even if it's serving you in a bad way, it's still served you.
So moving on to the section of the podcast where we talk about how to become a successful dietitian. So I was hoping that, I thought it would be a good place to start actually to ask, what does success mean to you?
Success for me, I guess, is happiness in what I do. So I always want to feel like I'm happy within myself. And if I'm happy within myself, I can usually help other people in finding their happy. So for me, it's happiness is a big component of success. And I'm not going to say you need to be happy every single day with every aspect of your life, but I would say majority of the time, I want to be happy what I'm doing, and I want to be in places that bring me joy. And the second most important thing for me is the freedom of time. So although I left 9 to 5 to work 24 hours, I still get to choose almost how I coach, when I coach, and freedom of time being a mum is a massive, massive component of my life. So I want to be able to pick them up from school or to attend, their sporting events or parents' evenings without having to compromise on my clients.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that will, I used to define happiness as, success is very much, I suppose, career focused. But yeah, as I've got a little bit older, I do think that happiness in both my personal and my professional life are success to me, I think. It's taken a little bit of time, I think, to actually think, when am I most happy in my personal life? Is it like when I'm exercising, spending time with family, creating things like this podcast? And it's difficult, I think, when you're building so much and on the move and wanting to have success in all areas of your life, to think, am I like, is what I'm doing making me happy? So for me, I need time to also reflect on what makes me happy, and thinking, am I just going through the motions? But have you ever gone through anything like that? How, like, I know you said earlier that you're not always happy, but is what I'm saying resonating with you?
It does. And also, if you asked me this question 10 years ago, I don't think I would be like freedom of time and, being happy. I think success then would have been career related. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm a dietitian, I'm newly graduated, I have a student loan to pay off, and success for me would be paying that student loan off, or it might be moving up in my career. It was very different. And that's why at different stages of your life, that word success will mean different things to you. So I don't think it has to be that, everyone just has to sit there being happy. You may well go through 2 years of a horrible, horrible job, but even in that horrible job, there will be a huge amount of learning and a huge amount of experience. And at least you know what you don't want. Even if you haven't figured out what you do, you know what you don't. And I think we figure out our don'ts quicker than we figure out our do's. So it is really different. Numerous times in the year, I do an activity called the Wheel of Life, and I do this in my coaching and with my clients. It's a fantastic tool where, clients are able to identify 5 areas of their life, or you can do 3, you can do as many as you want, and you rate yourself from kind of 0 to 10 on where you think you are in that area. And then you line up all the dots to see, which one you're kind of excelling in, one that you may not be. And you figure out, okay, if I was a 3 in socializing, for example, and I wanted to become a 4, what do I need to do? What steps do I need to take just to go up to the 4? And it might be, book a networking event or attend a family event or something, but just writing that down gives you that plan of how you can increase your happiness in that area. So I always think to myself, you don't need to be happy in every area, but you need to have maybe a couple of areas where you want to strive for that.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really great advice. And I mean, writing things down, I find very helpful. So yeah, I think that, making a list of the things that you want to become happier in just getting it out of your head and onto a piece of paper, I think that would be great for, I don't know, well, my mental state anyway, to stop voices going round and round in my head. Um, anyway, you mentioned about the degrees that you undertook in order to, get your certificates and bits and pieces like that. And about people posing, I suppose, as experts. So, how can a person gain the qualifications to become a dietitian?
I think there is actually only one way of doing it, and that is going to university and doing a 3 or 4 year undergraduate degree. Or you could, if you've got like a science degree, you could go back and do a master's in nutrition to become a dietitian. But there is no other way. Like, you have to go through university to become a dietitian. There is no certificate, no course out there that will make you a dietitian. If that's what you're aiming for. So it's like go to university, identical to how you'd want to become a lawyer or a doctor or any other registered profession. You'd have to go to university and do it. You have the studying at university, but there's also the training. So we don't just go to uni and read textbooks. We go back into the hospital and we do months of placements where we actually learn how to put everything into practice. A bit like, when you're a doctor, you wouldn't just read a textbook and then be allowed to start working with patients and sticking cannulas in them. You'd practice all of this the same way dietetics is practiced in reality.
You've mentioned as well that you have recently, off the back of lockdown, launched your own business.
Yes.
Was running your own business always your intention when you were going through, I suppose, university?
Yes. Well, I don't know about university. Well, as soon as I qualified, I always thought I'd have my own thing, and I always did. So whoever I worked for, I did my 9 to 5, and then on the weekends and evenings and all my days off, I would do private work in nutrition. I'd work for different brands, different companies, and I'd book annual leave to work. So I would say I have always wanted to do that, but the fear is when you work for yourself is you've got to make your own money, and that 1 month you can do amazingly well, 1 month you can do nothing, and it all evens out. And I guess it took me to this age before I had the courage to fully break loose and do it for myself. I always, at the back of my mind, wanted a salary coming in from somewhere, so I never took my foot out of the NHS or working with other companies or private practice with other people because of that fear. And it was post-lockdown that I just said, I'm going to do it for myself, and there won't be any turning around.
Yeah, sounds like you've always had this entrepreneurial spirit. So having that spirit and, booking holiday at work to go off and do your hustle, did, I suppose, how should I put this? Like launching a business, running a business become very naturally to you? Because I can appreciate that being a dietitian is different to, sorting out the logistics of launching a business and running a business. So did that come naturally? Is it something that you had to learn along the way?
I'm going to say,
what's your experience?
It didn't come naturally, and there was a huge imposter syndrome attached to that, because I'm the same person, but all of a sudden I have this business on my name and responsibility. And I remember, just having to, deal with Companies House and register my name and, find a name for the business. All these little things are not things that you're taught. You learn along the way. There isn't well, I suppose there is a book, I haven't read it yet, but there isn't a step-by-step guide of here's how you open a business, especially in dietetics. So I had to learn on the job and hope that I don't go too far off in the wrong direction. There are some amazing dietitians out there that have opened businesses and have been very successful. And I was very fortunate that they were very happy to help me and say, okay, this is what you do, this is what you don't do, this is how you do it when it comes to healthcare. But I didn't, what I do best is coach clients. I know how to do that. I don't need to be taught. I've done years of that. But running a business is something you almost learn on the job.
Yeah. So when you started off, did you have a business plan in mind, a strategy, or did you just kind of wing it?
I winged it. I did not have any business plan. And I just, I had the wellness clinic in Harrods approached me to say, they really wanted a dietitian to come on board. Would I come on board? As soon as I said yes, it was the craziest roller coaster I ever went on. I, had to become a brand very quickly because they only want brands in there. I had to start thinking about names and what my offering is. It was just like really quick and a full-on journey of VAT registration and all these things that you never think of when you say yes to working somewhere. So it was a roller coaster.
Yeah, I don't know. I find it really funny because the majority of people that I've spoken to on #NoFilter, they didn't have a business plan at all, and they've become really successful. So it is a kind of trend that I've seen. A lot of entrepreneurs just go in there, doing what they feel is right, making mistakes along the way, learning. And I think that if you have the fire and the passion and the people skills, you can make it. It doesn't matter if you have a business plan or not. Well done. So you mentioned as well that you're in Harrods and that they approached you, but like surely you have built up your reputation for them to approach you. So, I mean, how did you do this? How did you build up that reputation for people like, Harrods and people like that to come to you and to offer you opportunities like that?
I think I have a huge advantage being a dietitian. So Harrods and the wellness clinic in Harrods in particular is a place that it does medical treatments. It's not a spa, but it's the equivalent of a medical spa. And there's lots of amazing medical treatments out there. And they want world-class practitioners to be in there. They have all the aesthetic treatments, amazing doctors, and the clinic itself wouldn't have taken just any nutritionist on board. They really wanted a registered professional. They were like, we need a dietitian, we need someone that can help with actual clinical conditions. And that's what we see, whether it be skin or weight, anything, there is a clinical component to this. So you have to have someone quite registered to be in there. And, it was on them to do all their vetting and, figure out if I was qualified enough and if I had the credentials that they were looking for to be there. But I would say my biggest thing is the fact that I'm a dietitian allowed me to, essentially the qualifications helped me to get in there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing. I think that's really nice to hear. It makes me think about the industry that I'm going into, and a lot of people who become solicitors strive for a partner, and a great deal of them make it if they have people skills, I think, because it's all about winning business, and getting the firm's name out there and getting your name out there. But sometimes I think that what I've heard anyway, people can forget that you actually have to be a really good lawyer in order to get to that point. And it sounds like you have put in a great deal of hard work in order to become, the best in your field. And then all these, great opportunities have come on top of that. So putting in the hard work and getting all these qualifications does sound like the absolutely solid foundation that you need in order to get these other opportunities.
Yeah, it's easy to build when your foundations are really solid. Also, it's easy to then go and learn and build, build more and more on top of that. So for me, it's always just go do a course and figure it out and do more and do more. But because I have, those 5 years of university behind me, I'm able to do it efficiently. Otherwise, and I have imposter syndrome now. I don't know what I'd be like if I missed a step in the process. I don't think I'd be able to do it. With my personality, I just wouldn't be.
It sounds like you have an absolute thirst for knowledge when it comes to this, and also you put your patient's interest, at the center of your heart. So I think those combining those two will make you want to, just read every little piece of information that's out there, and to have a solid foundation.
I do, but I'm also very quick to refer clients on to other dietitians. I know what I'm really good at, and that's all I want to be good at. I don't want to be a specialist in gut or anything like that. That's not my speciality. It's not what I did when I did my NHS career. It's not what I specialize in. It's not something that I was passionate about. And without the passion, I don't want to be giving the knowledge. So I do quite happily refer clients on, and they're always like, oh, I really wanted to work with you. I'm very honest in saying I'm not the best person in this. So if you want to actually see really good results, I'm not the person you should be working with. And it's taken me years to become that confident and to get to that stage of, I don't need to know it all. That's not what dietitians do. We're not there to know it all.
So how do you win and retain business?
How do I win? I mean, usually my wins are not retaining clients, because once a client's worked with me, they shouldn't be with me after that. I've done my job and they're where they need to be, and they should not be coming back. But the reality of life is people want to come back. They want to know more. They want to progress. So I'll have clients that have, lost amazing amount of weight, and they're not exactly where they need to be, but they disappear after they've done 14 or 24 weeks with me. That's a long time to dedicate to, one particular thing. And then I tell them, go away, have a break, enjoy this weight for 6 months, come back when you want the next leg of your journey. And they usually always do. And they're happy that they get to go away, they get to think about it, they get to practice it. But I still talk to them every now and then. They message me, I message them. And then when they're ready, they come back. So for me, it's working with the client on what they need. Now, I don't think this works as a good business model, so I don't recommend people use that strategy, but it works for me. And I guess, again, with no business plan and no real business strategy, there'll be some clients that, you just don't want to retain them because it's not right for them. And, you're not the right thing that they need at the moment. So you have to move them on to other services. And for some clients, you have to let them go and let them come back when the time is right. So I guess that's the way I win, is I personalize it to what that client actually wants, and not thinking about it from a business perspective, because this is healthcare for me.
It sounds like different diets, are suitable for different people, as you were saying earlier. Different ways of winning and retaining business suit different kind of entrepreneurs. So, thank you for sharing that. So what is the biggest challenge that you have overcome as a dietitian, or faced even?
I think there are many challenges. So in the world of working as a dietitian, I say I don't actually feel that many challenges. So there's nothing really that, I find challenging within the profession. It's a very small profession, the world of dietitians. We all pretty much know each other, and we've all worked in similar or the same places. So it's really nice. It's a community. It's a lot of working together and supporting each other. However, I think my challenges lie in the world of business. It is difficult to grow a business and networking and constantly having meetings and being unsure about what you're going in and what you're coming out with. So I find the world of business and being a business owner a little bit more challenging than I have done being a dietitian. So I know that the dietitian bit is sorted. The business bit will probably come with experience. So that's where you have to, have a couple of failures so you can learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like you have a very level head. You are very level-headed. So perhaps, we'll meet up again and chat again in a couple of years' time to see if you have faced any real risks or challenges. But it sounds to me like you're going to be absolutely just fine. Is there a misconception as working as a dietitian that you think that people should be aware of?
I think people think anyone can do this, and I think anyone can. Just depends what kind of quality you want out there. So anyone can give you advice, anyone can support you on your journey. that can be your best friend, your hairdresser, your mum, it can be anyone. But who would you choose to go on that journey with? And I have, for me, if I was doing a journey in health and fitness and wellness, I don't think I'd want anyone but the professionals to be on board with me. So the misconception is anyone can do it, but it's on you to figure out who you want on that journey, because we can't really break that misconception. So many people are doing it and doing it well. So you need to I guess we need to filter through, or whoever is on the journey and wants to then find a dietitian needs to figure out which one they want to work with. Because the reality is, if you're a dietitian and you're looking at the wide range of dietitians, we're all singing off the same hymn sheet. We didn't learn anything different. We're all on the same page of how to lose weight, how to get calorie deficit, but it's which one is going to take you on that journey, and who are you going to bond with and gel with and enjoy that process, because your journey is a journey. It's not the end result that we're interested in. It's that process of how you got there. So how do you make that fulfilling?
Excellent, thank you. Has your life changed? Or though, do you know what? I'm sure it has. How has your life changed since? How has your professional life changed since becoming a mum?
I think my drive to do it differently has been really, really big. So dietitians are predominantly females, and we all have the same story. Like, at some point, most people want to have a child or more than one child. And how do you all juggle work? We all want to work school hours. Dietetics is not a school hours business. It's around the clock. People need care. If you're in the hospital, people are sick around the clock. So you can't just work 10 to 2 or whatever, the most convenient hours. And it also then becomes unfair on the dietitians that choose not to have children or haven't got any children at that moment, who then pick up all the weight. So I have always found it did change because my needs were different. And how do we all keep that profession and then work part-time or do a job share? So for me, having that freedom of time became so important, because 9 to 5 never works for me unless I pay for childcare. And I never really wanted to. I guess I had children so I could raise them to a certain extent. I did, and I have had childcare and nannies and au pairs. But at this point in my life, I'm choosing not to have that. So it has made me rethink the 9 to 5 hours, so I can be there as a mum. And I guess the older they get, the more I go back to my old way of, I just want to work 9 to 5 now, because they don't need me as much and I don't need to go to the pickups anymore. So it's just a phase in your life, and it's almost like a 10-year span when you have your children, that those 10 years you change the way you work and then you go back to how it used to be.
Thank you for sharing that. Do you know what? Like, as you're saying this, I can imagine how. Well, it sounds to me anyway. I don't have kids, but I do have 3 cats that want constant attention.
Which is having kids.
So I mean, I can imagine how stressful it is. But you say it so calmly and so collected that, it sounds like you've really got it down. But it makes me think about what we were saying earlier about different things coming at different times in your life, and it does sound like you have had different experiences and throughout your professional life that has got you to this point. So I mean, am I right in saying that it's the kind of like experience and knowing what you want out of life that enables you to balance all of your priorities?
It really does, because it forces you to hold down that career. And this topic for me is a whole podcast of itself, because things like, oh, how do you just asking me, how did your profession change? I wonder if men ever asked the same question. Oh, how did life change for you after you became a dad? Because I don't know. I just feel like it's a real common question that's asked to the women of, how did you juggle this? How did your life change? And that just, to me, shows a level of responsibility we have in raising children. And I do remember that I have never walked out of work. I have run out of work. I'm usually late and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to miss the pickup. I need to get to school on time. And you're chasing time. And for the first time in my life, I don't have to chase the clock. The clock is there, it's ticking, and I'm not running. I'm simply walking for the first time, and that's an amazing feeling to have, and to be able to get there. For me, that is true success. Of I'm not running to places after work because I need to be somewhere else.
Well, I'm so happy that it's worked out for you. So what is your favorite self-care activity? How do you really unwind from work?
This is really tough because I feel like my whole life is work related. So even if I sit there and I'm like, oh, I'm going to listen to a podcast, it's usually like a work related thing, or, you know, something that's educational. I don't choose to, you know, choose nonfiction or, you know, crime or something like that. It's always work related. But I do love going away. Now, although when I do go away, it's usually business and pleasure. When I do the pleasure part of it, I thoroughly take enjoyment and relaxation out of that. So holidays, and also meeting like-minded people and people that give me that energy. It does really boost me, and it makes the world of a difference. And I feel like that's a huge component of self-care. Sometimes I just need to lock myself in my room and be in my own, but sometimes I need to be out there with people that really lift me up, and that is my self-care.
I love that. Do you know what? I can really, well, I feel like there's a lot of that in me as well. So I like to listen to podcasts and educational stuff, but perhaps when I'm on a walk, so I'm getting that fresh air that I know that I need in order to feel good. But I'm also feeding my mind with stuff that's going to benefit me. So I do see that as a self-care activity as well. But yeah, it's having that balance. I'm actually going away in a couple of days. And I don't want to look at my phone, anything like that. So yeah, I do feel like it's an important to get some self-care and just completely zone out. But yeah, your idea of self-care sounds wonderful to me. What do you want every aspiring entrepreneur from any and every industry to know?
That your downs or your failures are actually going to be your biggest lessons that eventually help you to succeed. So you do need to take that drop. You do need to feel that uncertainty. And sometimes you do need to take the risk. I think all of us think that the world is watching us and we can't slip up, when the reality is no one actually cares what you're doing. They just want you to do something, and it doesn't matter what that something is. So don't worry about the failures and the things that didn't work out, because one day you'll be able to talk about them with so much passion. And I would encourage everybody to throw as much out there into the universe. Just keep putting things out there and do so much of it that you actually forget what is out there, because it will materialize and come back to you when you least expect it.
That's so inspiring. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's great advice. So where can people learn more about your business, book an appointment, and follow you?
I think the best place to learn a bit more about me is my website, so thedietician.com. I have recently launched my own podcast, The Dietitian Bites, where I talk to dietitians and also other influencers in the profession that are making a big change. So you can hear us. And for any appointments, you can contact the Wellness Clinic in Harrods directly through their website and get booked in.
Excellent. Well, I will put all of these details in the show notes of this episode, but I will just give a quick shout out to your podcast because I've listened to the episodes and it is fantastic. So I highly encourage everybody to check that out. I have had a wonderful time chatting with you, and I'm sure that listeners have thoroughly enjoyed listening. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.